Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 211, Roundhouse Roulette. The Great Railway Show was taking place on the mainland, and engines from all over the world were flocking to the grand festival. To the surprise of Sir Topham Hatt and the Sodor engines, their railway had been chosen as a staging area while the events were taking place, and soon Vickerstown Station was crowded with international engines. "Well, I certainly didn't see this coming," said Sir Topham Hatt. "What's going on?" asked Thomas. "What are all of these strange engines doing here?" "It appears that Sodor was elected as the official queuing area for the Great Railway Show. Since I had to abandon those important meetings when Sailor John was causing all of that trouble, I wasn't there to provide any input on the decision. Granted, it does make some sense since Sodor is right next to the mainland, but I would have liked to have had some heads up on the matter." "Well, we need to do something with them," said Percy. "They're clogging up the entire station." "Agreed. You two, please escort these engines to Vickerstown sheds for now, while I make some telephone calls and try to fix this mess." Thomas and Percy smiled. They liked being in charge of important decisions. "Attention, everyone," shouted Thomas. "Attention, please." But nobody was listening. The engines kept chatting as if nothing had happened. "Hello, everyone," peeped Percy. "Thomas here has an important message." But Percy's quiet voice was drowned out too. The engines stared at each other. "This isn't going to work," sighed Thomas. "We need someone with a big voice." "Silence!" boomed a mysterious engine. Everyone stopped talking at once and they looked at Thomas and Percy. "Who was that?" they gasped. "Don't you remember?" chuckled the engine. "It's me, Flying Scotsman. I know it's been a while, but I never thought I was that forgettable." Thomas and Percy laughed. "It's so nice to see you again," they smiled. "You look better than ever," added Thomas. "But what are you doing here anyway?" "I'm part of the Great Railway Show, of course. I was told to come to Sodor before my competitions began, and it looks like I wasn't the only one who got the message." "Oh, right," said Thomas. "Hello, everyone. Welcome to the island of Sodor. My name is Thomas, and this here is—" "Ah, shut it," said one of the engines. "We was having a nice conversation here before your green snake friend told us all to be quiet. Nobody tells us what to do. Get lost, losers." Thomas and Percy were petrified. They hadn't expected the new engines to be so mean. "Don't speak for all of us," said another. "These engines belong here. This is their railway. We are merely their guests. Please, continue." "Oh, thank you," said Thomas quietly. "As I was saying, I'm Thomas, this is Percy, and you've all probably heard of the Flying Scotsman. Please follow us to the shed so that you can get some rest before your big events tomorrow." The international engines murmured happily at the news. By that evening, they had all been moved out of the station and into Vickerstown sheds. "Some of you will have to sleep outside," said the Flying Scotsman, "but the weather is beautiful here. You'll fall asleep looking at the stars each night. Believe me." "Phew," sighed Percy. "That was hard work. Thank you so much for helping us, Flying Scotsman. Nobody listens to little engines like us, but they certainly pay attention to a big guy like you." "Of course. It was nice to see you two again. If you don't mind, I think I'm going to spend the night here with all of my new friends." "That's a great idea," said Thomas. "We'll see you all tomorrow. Come along, Percy. It's time we got back to our own sheds." But as soon as Thomas and Percy puffed away, Billy and Rosie rolled up. "What are all of these engines doing here?" asked Billy. "Normally there's nobody at these sheds." "Hey, you, big guy, that's my spot." "Billy, that's no way to treat these engines," said Rosie. I don't know who they are, but they must be here for a good reason. Come on, let's go find somewhere else to sleep." And so the mad shuffle began. With Vickerstown sheds filled to the brim, Billy and Rosie were forced to go somewhere else. They found space at the Search and Rescue Center, but then Belle and Flynn were pushed out. Those two decided to spend the night at the quarry, which left no room for Bill and Ben. They ended up taking Whip and Scruff's spots at the scrapyard, who in turn took up Logan and Sam's places at the coal depot. Before long, every engine was being pushed from their usual sleeping locations. By the time Thomas and Percy got back to Tidmouth, there was no room for either of them. "Cinders and ashes!" cried Thomas. "What's all this about?" "Sorry, Thomas," said Edward, "but with the Great Railway Show engines occupying Vickerstown tonight, everybody's been forced to find new sheds." Just then, Toby puffed up with Henrietta. "I just got kicked out of my own shed by some bossy boilerhead named Vinny," he complained. "This is outrageous." But the engines in the shed found it hard to sympathize with the latecomers. "You should have gotten here earlier, Thomas," said James. "Just because you're the number one engine doesn't mean there's always going to be a spot reserved for you." "Hey, we were out helping the new engines find a place to sleep," protested Percy. "That's why we were late. We couldn't just leave them at the station." "So this is all your fault," said Henry. "You're the ones who let them take over Vickerstown sheds, and now you're paying the price. I don't see what the problem is." Thomas was very upset. "Those were Sir Topham Hatt's orders," he said crossly. "Thank goodness he's not here to see how selfish you all are being. Come on, Percy and Toby, let's go find someplace else to sleep." And the three engines puffed away. "At last, some peace and quiet," murmured Murdoch. "Enjoy that roof over your head while you can," chuckled Daisy. "When it comes time to pull the trains tomorrow, everybody's going to snatch up the nicest berth they can get." Suddenly, it occurred to the engines that as soon as they left the sheds in the morning, their spots were going to be taken. Then they would end up without a place to sleep like Thomas, Percy, and Toby. "You know what," said James quietly, "I'm not really looking forward to pulling the express tomorrow. You can take it, Henry." "Oh, no, thank you. I was just about to give away my goods train to Hank." "Sorry, fellers, but I'm thinking about taking a rest day tomorrow, too," he said. And so the arguing commenced. None of the engines wanted to leave the sheds for fear of losing their spots, and in the morning nothing had been resolved. "James, you are going to be late," shouted Sir Topham Hatt. "Why haven't you left yet?" "Sorry, sir, but I'm just not up to the task today. Boiler ache, I believe." "Hey, you stole my excuse," wheezed Henry. "Sir, James is faking it. He just doesn't want to leave the sheds because he'll lose his precious spot." "You're doing the same thing," countered James. "In fact, we are all doing the same thing," said Edward quietly. "Sir, ever since the international engines took up residence at Vickerstown, there has been a shortage of berths for the rest of us. Is there anything you can do to fix this problem?" "So that's what this is about," laughed Sir Topham Hatt. "I was beginning to think this was all a conspiracy to get Fergus here to pull the express. Well, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is that Sodor is no longer the staging area for the Great Railway Show, so the international engines don't have to stay here anymore." The engines cheered happily. They were looking forward to getting their sheds back. "At the same time, this does not mean that the international engines are being forced to leave Sodor, so if some of them wish to spend the nights here between their competitions, then I will not stop them from doing so. You will all have to learn how to share. Let this, incident be a lesson to you all. Thomas and Percy gave the engines such a warm welcome yesterday that I wouldn't be surprised if most of them decide to stay. These sheds are not just meant for you. They are meant to be shared with all engines, permanent and visiting. The engines realized how selfish they were being and quickly set to work. Like Sir Topham Hatt had predicted, most of the engines decided to stay on Sodor. It was far less crazy on the island than the mainland. Best of all, the Sodor engines and international engines quickly became accustomed with one another, and any ill feelings were immediately dissolved. Now that we've got that mess out of the way, chuckled Thomas, let the games begin. Good luck, everyone. It was going to be a busy few months on Sodor indeed. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 212, Flash Gordon. While everyone on Sodor was excited about the Great Railway Show, Gordon found it hard to even be remotely interested. He had other pressing issues on his mind. "It's just so terrible," he muttered to himself. "How could something like this happen? If only I'd been present when this occurred." "What's the matter, Gordon?" asked Molly. "Did somebody smash your express coaches? Is your driver or fireman sick? Please tell me what's the problem. Maybe I can help you." "It's my hill," he stammered. "My beautiful hill is now this wasteland of despair. Look what that pirate did to the landscape. There's nothing left. It will take months, years even, for the trees to start growing back. Oh, it's horrific. Wouldn't you agree?" But Molly was not impressed. "This is what you're blubbering about? Oh, spare me. It's just some plants." "I knew you wouldn't understand," winced Gordon. "Nobody does. This hill is my pride and joy. Now it looks like something that should be mined for valuables. Hey, you two, don't you even think about prospecting here. This is still my hill." Molly rolled her eyes. "You are being outrageous and overdramatic," she quipped. "If the destruction of your precious hill is really this terrible, then go talk to your brother about it. He's at Vickerstown Station right now. Maybe he'll have some bright ideas." Gordon had no idea that the Flying Scotsman was back on Sodor. "Why, that's brilliant! I will go do that at once." At the station, Gordon could hardly contain his excitement. "Scotsman," he shouted, "you look magnificent." "Gordon, my boy, it's been too long. You're looking rather dapper yourself. I was just talking to Spencer here." "Oh," muttered Gordon, "I didn't think you two would have much to talk about." "Relax, Gordon. We're all family here. Let bygones be bygones and get excited for the Great Railway Show. Time trials for the speed competition are happening tomorrow. Surely you'll be taking a stab at it, right?" "Oh, I don't think so. I am an express engine, but I'm not a speed demon like Spencer here. I take pride in pulling my passengers in a safe and proper manner." "So that's why you're always late," chuckled Spencer. "Too much emphasis on safety and not enough on speed. It's a good thing you're sitting this one out." "Now, gents, let's keep this civil," said the Flying Scotsman. "But, Gordon, I think you should reconsider. After all..." Suddenly, a dark blue engine rushed into the station. The crowd of passengers cheered when they realized who it was. "You do know Mallard is competing, right?" Gordon's jaw hung open. "You're the Mallard? The fastest steam engine in the world? Oh, it's an honor to meet you. We are distantly related, you know." Sure thing, sport. Seems like every engine I meet nowadays is a relative in some shape or form. Whatever you need to get your claim to fame, I suppose." Gordon was rather taken aback. "Well, isn't he a snooty fellow?" he said quietly. "It runs in the family," chuckled the Flying Scotsman. "Despite our differences, Gordon," added Spencer, "Mallard and myself agree it would be legendary to have all four of us in the same race. Somebody does need to bring up the rear, after all." "All right, that's it. I never said I wasn't fast. I just said I like my passengers to arrive at the station in one piece. But you've asked for it now, and I would be more than happy to oblige in this little race that you are all obsessed with. I'll see you tomorrow then. But Gordon wasn't thinking clearly, and the Flying Scotsman knew this. That evening, he confronted his brother at the steamworks. Gordon, what's going on here? Where's your tender? Why are there paint cans here? I'm getting an upgrade, he laughed. Spencer and Mallard think they're so wonderful and perfect. I'll see to it that neither of them makes it out of the qualifying sessions. Just then, Connor puffed up. Oh, hello, Gordon. Hi, Flying Scotsman. I was told I was needed here. There he is, roared Gordon to the workmen. Make me look exactly like that engine there, streamlined and all. With some minor aerodynamic modifications, I'll be the fastest engine the world has ever seen. Right on it, shouted Victor. Let's get to work, Kevin. Scotsman, how does the name The Shooting Star sound to you? I rather like it myself, but I've always been... Gordon, you must stop, he interrupted. This is all absurd. You're trying to become an engine that you clearly aren't meant to be. Pah! I'm just recognizing my true form. There's nothing wrong with a little paint and paneling to give me an advantage. No, Gordon, it's not about that. I'm sorry to tell you this, but no matter what Victor and his crew do to you, you're still not going to be faster than Mallard. Everything screeched to a halt. I can't believe you're saying that, spluttered Gordon. My own brother, condemning me to a life of a coach puller just because he doesn't think I can go fast. Well, I'll show you and everybody else out there. It's not that, Gordon. Spencer and Mallard were inherently designed to be quicker engines. I still support you for trying, but I'm also trying to be as realistic as possible. You'll likely qualify for the race, but there is a very little chance you'll blow them out of the water like you've been saying. Gordon looked around at the workmen. They were waiting for their next instructions. Oh, you're right, he muttered. I'm sorry, Scotsman. I've been so preoccupied with other things right now. I haven't even been practicing for a race like this. What should I do? Well, you definitely still need to qualify tomorrow, he replied. There's nothing wrong with giving it your best shot, and I'm sure a bunch of engines, myself included, would be overjoyed to see your full potential. But you don't need any fancy parts or pieces. Just go as yourself and prove them wrong the old-fashioned way. You're right. Thank you for your time, Victor, but I've made up my mind. Connor, I'll see you at the race tomorrow. Now I need to go get some rest if I'm going to be really useful and really fast. The next day after their races, Gordon and the Flying Scotsman were talking at Vickerstown Station. Well done, Gordon. I've never been more proud of you in my life. That was quite a showing, especially up against all of those streamlined engines. Yes, and I can't believe I was seriously going to go through with that. I mean, the Shooting Star? What kind of name is that? It's not that impressive when you think about it, laughed the Flying Scotsman. A shooting star is brilliant for a tiny moment, and then fades away into obscurity. You're much more important than that. That's why I like my new nickname better. Flash Gordon. He's so bright you can't miss him. Impressive, huh? Yes, somewhat better. It sounds oddly familiar, though. Just then, the two engines were interrupted by an awful hissing sound. Mallard was being pushed to the platform by Spencer. Well, 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 laughed Gordon. Look at this claim to fame here. What happened to you, old sport? His safety valve burst during the run, shouted Spencer. Now I'm going to miss my chance to qualify because of you. Brothers, chuckled the Flying Scotsman. Can't live with them, can't live without them. and the two engines laughed. It was good to be friends again. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 213, Philip Finds a Friend. One of the shunters for the Great Railway Show was a diesel box cab named Philip. He was a young, spry engine with a great sense of humor, but the other diesel shunters didn't like him. "You're too happy all the time," they said. "Why don't you settle down? You're not impressing anyone." "How can anyone possibly settle down right now? It's such a beautiful time. The Great Railway Show is going on. We get to meet engines from all over the world. And best of all, during our downtime, we get to come to Sodor. It's the most marvelous experience any engine could wish for." The diesel shunters rolled their eyes. "You're too different. Try and act normal like us. Otherwise engines will make fun of you. And get a new paint job, would ya? We diesels should all look the same. It's better for our, presentation." Philip didn't want to be made fun of. "A new paint job? Oh, all right. I'll go do that then." And he raced away. The diesel shunters laughed. "The little spitball won't shut up. Maybe we'll get lucky and he'll get lost or something." And that's exactly what happened. Philip had never been to Sodor before, and he tried his best to navigate across the island. But he only ended up getting more lost the further he went. "Oh, I have no idea where I am. I suppose I have to run into something eventually. Oh, that's a nice station. What a cute little engine. Wow, that's a ginormous castle. Oh, the paint factory. I did make it here after all. Hello? Is anyone home?" But nobody was around. Philip was beginning to feel rather lost. "Oh, I should have never have left the mainland. I'm only good at one thing, and that's shunting trucks. Where is everyone, anyway?" Just then, a big blue tender engine puffed around the corner. Philip was excited to see that he wasn't alone. "Maybe that engine will know how I can get back to the mainland." And Philip set off. He finally caught up to the engine down the line when he was backing into a shed. "Hello there, I'm Philip. I was wondering—" "Gah, you scared me," gasped the engine. "What's your problem, shorty? Nobody goes around scaring Vinny like that." "Oh, nice to meet you, Vinny. I'm glad we're already on a first-name basis. I don't know a whole lot about steam engines, but you—" "What's your problem, short stuff? Can't you see I'm trying to rest here? Leave me alone. I've got some very important competitions coming up." "Oh, sorry about that," said Philip. "If you need to sleep, then I'll just wait here until you're ready to talk." Vinny looked at Philip. "It's going to be a while, man. Like a few hours or so. And I don't want you staring at me while I'm trying to sleep. That's just weird." "If it bothers you, I can go up to the top of that hill and watch you from there." "No, that's even creepier. Gah, just leave already. I'm tired, and you're making me anxious." Philip's smile quickly disappeared. "Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to disturb you. It's just, I don't have too many friends outside of the other diesels, and I don't think they like talking to me. It's because I'm different, you know? All of the diesel shunters are painted orange, and I'm—" "Wait, did you say you're friends with the diesel shunters?" asked Vinny. Philip was surprised. "Oh, yes, I am. We're great pals, in fact. We shunt all of the trains for the Great Railway Show on the mainland." Vinny's eyes lit up. "So you're the guys that are arranging all of the trains and stuff for the competitions, right? Oh, that's fantastic. It's so nice to meet you, Felipe. Why don't you show me your diesel shunting friends right now?" Philip was thrilled. "I can do that. They're at the big station, but I don't know how to get back there. I'm just visiting after all." "Let me lead the way," chuckled Vinny. "I know this railway like the back of my tender." "Oh, that is a nice tender," murmured Philip. "I don't have a tender, but if I did, I would choose that one." Eventually, the two engines made their way to Knapford Station. The diesel shunters were still resting. "There they are!" cried Philip. "Hey there, I'm back!" "Oh, goody. We were hoping you'd be gone a little longer." "You're going to love my new friend here. His name is Vinny, and he really wants to meet you all." Vinny puffed in and immediately turned on the charm. "Hey, boys, I'll be competing in a few strength competitions in a few days, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd, lighten the load a little bit." The diesel shunters chuckled. "I see what you mean. You're a sneaky one, aren't you?" "What's he talking about?" asked Philip. "Lighten the load? What does that mean?" "Get lost, Phil," said Vinny. "Me and the boys have some discussing to do." "Hey, I'm the one who brought you here. Don't tell me to leave right now. We just became friends, remember?" "Oh, right. Listen, Shorty, we're not really, friends. This is a work-related matter. Now go get that new coat of paint that you were talking about earlier and leave us alone." Philip was very upset. "Sodor engines are quite rude. I don't ever want to come back here again." "Actually, he's not a Sodor engine," said Stafford. "He's a visitor, and a troublesome one at that." "How do you know?" asked Philip. "Because I'm a Sodor engine, and Vinny didn't start showing up here until the Great Railway show. I've been hearing some disappointing comments from you guys over the past few hours, specifically about poor little Philip here. Gossiping is no way to treat your friends. I suggest you all head back to the mainland and don't even think about rigging the show for this dumbbell here. I really don't want to get Sir Topham Hatt involved in all of this." The diesel shunters were scared straight. They rolled out of the yard as quickly as they could. "As for you, Vinny, go pick on someone your own size. Maybe Sam or Hank over there can show you to the Vickerstown Bridge if you disagree." Vinny let out a devious snarl. "Okay, Mr. Electric, I can see that this is your yard, but if you ever come to my part of the world, just know that I'll be waiting for you."
"Oh, that's nice of him," murmured Philip. "Vinny's going to wait for us to visit him. How sweet."
"No, Philip, it isn't sweet. Vinny and those diesel shunters are mean, and they don't deserve to be friends with you. In fact, I'd say stay away from them at all costs. They don't like anybody who's different from them, and your time is better spent working here in the yard on Sodor."
But I have to get back to the Great Railway show," protested Philip. "What will they do without me?"
"Oh, they'll survive," chuckled Stafford. "At least here on Sodor, everybody will be nice to you, and we can work together every day. How does that sound?" Philip thought it sounded great. He had definitely found a new friend indeed. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 214, Harvey's Happy Accident. One morning, Harvey and the breakdown train were called to a crash at Tidmouth Station. Derek had been reversing with some tar tankers, and they had overturned on the points. Both lines were blocked. "Sorry for the mess," said Derek quietly. "It's all my fault." "Nonsense. This could have happened to anyone. You go get cleaned up, and I'll take care of the rest." Harvey quickly set to work, but the tankers were at some odd angles, and he had trouble getting them back on the rails. Soon the passengers began to arrive for the next train, and Harvey felt the pressure mounting. "I need to get all of this cleaned up before Oliver arrives," he said to himself. Then the station master walked out. He had been expecting Tidmouth to look perfect and clean like it always did, but instead he found both lines blocked and a crane engine in his path. "Are you still here? That accident happened ages ago. What's the hold-up?" "Sorry, sir, but I'm doing my best. I'll have this line cleared up in just a moment." But the station master wasn't happy. Work faster, he ordered. If Oliver is delayed, then the passengers will miss their connecting trains at Knapford. Poor Harvey was feeling overwhelmed and underconfident. He had almost gotten the second tar tanker upright when it rolled over and collapsed against the platform. In the chaos, Harvey backed up and his crane arm smashed into the pedestrian bridge. Oliver nearly stopped in time before he hit the pile of debris. "You are a disgrace," shouted the station master. "I'll see to it that Sir Topham Hatt knows about this." Harvey felt terrible. When Sir Topham Hatt arrived, he spoke briefly with the station master. "I saw the whole accident unfold. This thing has ruined Tidmouth Station. We'll be scraping tar off the platform for weeks." "That's enough," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Harvey is a good engine, and I'm sure he didn't mean to do it." "But all of the trains have to be canceled for today. I request you reprimand this engine at once." Sir Topham Hatt looked at Harvey. The poor engine had never felt worse. "Perhaps a change of scenery will rejuvenate you," he said quietly. "Why don't you go to the docks for a while and see if you take a liking to the work there? I'll have Rocky cover any accidents while you're gone." Harvey felt terrible. He had always been a breakdown engine, and doing a normal job at the docks seemed so foreign to him. "I'll never fit in here," he mumbled to himself. Salty, on the other hand, was overjoyed to have some help. "Harvey, you're just the engine we need. We've been overloaded with cargo from the mainland due to the Great Railway Show, and we need someone to unload packages from this here fancy new boat dock. Take a shot at it." But Harvey was uninterested at first. "I'm supposed to be picking up engines and putting them back on the rails, not organizing everybody's mail. They should have called Tom Tipper for this job." But gradually, Harvey got used to it and was surprisingly quick at unloading the boxes. "Keep them coming, me hearty. We're almost out of cargo cars. That means we're nearly done." By the end of the day, Salty and Harvey had sorted all of the packages and sent them on their way. The docks looked surprisingly empty. "That was incredible," gasped Cranky. "You may just be the second best dock crane on this island, after myself, of course." Harvey chuckled. "That was actually really fun. I didn't have to listen to the engines complain about their accidents for once. And the packages don't talk back if you're not being quick enough." "You should stay here, Harvey," said Salty. "Look at how much fun we had. After all, the docks is the land of the cranes. You look right at home. Nobody thinks you're weird or out of place here." "You're right," murmured Harvey. "Maybe this is my true calling after all." Salty and Cranky were happy to have the extra help, and Harvey was thrilled he was finally being appreciated. But back on the main line, things were not going as smoothly. "Where is Harvey?" asked Sir Topham Hatt. "I told him to go to the docks for a few days, and it's been over a week. What could be keeping him?" "Maybe he likes it there," suggested Winston. "After all, you were the one that said he needed a change of pace." "Huh, that was just to keep the station master pleased. I want Harvey to do the work he's most comfortable with. Let's go check on him." But on the outskirts of Crosby, the two ran into trouble. "A log on the line. Huh, and look at that coal piling up there. Harvey would have had this cleaned up days ago. We must get him back." Just then, Stanley puffed up. "Sir, you're needed at Tidmouth Station again. Apparently there's been another accident. I'm on my way to get Rocky right now." "Oh, bother," he grumbled. "What could the problem be?" He soon found out. "These careless engines," shouted the station master. "Yet another derailment. We just got the bridge fixed, and you've punched a hole in the support." "Like I was trying to do that," argued Donald. "How about you fix your rusty rails before blaming me?" So there's our problem, chuckled Sir Topham Hatt. It's the points, not the engines. You didn't do anything wrong, Donald, and neither did Derek or Harvey. I suggest you fix your switches, station master, before more trains have issues. The station master was speechless. Sir Topham Hatt knew what he had to do. Let's get Harvey back, he told Winston. This railway runs much better with him here. But when the two arrived at the docks, they saw what a fun time Harvey was having. This is amazing, said Winston. I don't think I've ever seen the docks so organized before. Harvey, did you do all of this? Well, I had some help from Salty and Cranky. It was all him, chuckled Salty. He's been the engine we've needed for a long time. Please don't make him leave, sir. I won't make Harvey do anything he doesn't want to. If you wish to stay here, then I must find another crane engine. I would really like to have you back on breakdown duty, but I understand if this new job suits you better. Thank you for your consideration, sir, said Harvey, and thank you for the wonderful time here at the docks, Salty and Cranky. But I'll always be a crane engine, and I love helping others in need. I'll go back to my old job, sir, but only if Salty and Cranky get some extra help. They desperately need it, sir. I can make that happen, he chuckled. Maybe I'll take a peek at the shunting competitions for the Great Railway Show and see if an engine stands out. Harvey was delighted. He was thrilled to go back to his old work, but he was even happier when the docks got another full-time engine to replace him. A few days later, he ran into Derek at Tidmouth. I'm sorry you got in trouble for my accident, he said. I didn't know Sir Topham Hatt would send you to the docks for all that. But by the time I found out about everything, you'd already returned. It's quite all right, chuckled Harvey. In fact, it was a rather happy accident, I think. I got to try out a new job for a while, Salty and Cranky got some extra help, and the points here at the station have finally been fixed. It was a small price to pay, considering how much good came out of it. Just then, the station master walked up. You too, he shouted. Get off the line, or I'm going to call... But Harvey wasn't fazed. He gently swung his hook over and lightly bonked the station master on the head. Why, you, he blabbered, and then stormed away. Derek chuckled. Serves him right for being such a nuisance. Nothing gets to me now, said Harvey smoothly. Rude railway employees, faulty switches, you name it, it won't dampen my spirits. And with that, Harvey puffed out of the station, a bolder and much more confident crane engine. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 215, Tyrannical Rex. The Arsdale Railway had been in a bit of a slump lately. After Sailor John's dynamite stand exploded in spectacular fashion, the passengers were worried that the small railway wasn't safe, and they stopped riding on the trains. This meant bad news for the little engines. I don't understand, protested Mike. The dynamite stand isn't even on our railway. It's way over there on the standard gauge line, and yet the passengers don't want to ride on our trains? Sounds about right, grumbled Frank. The passengers think they know it all, but they can't even boycott the right railway. No, Frank, I'm not talking about cotton. I'm talking about the passengers. Stay focused, please. Just then, Bert puffed in with a small train. There was no need for any more coaches than there were people. On the bright side, the trains are easier to pull, he chuckled. But Sir Topham Hatt was concerned. The small railway survives on tourism, he told Duck one morning. No tourists means no railway. There needs to be a reason why the tourists should visit Arsdale, suggested Duck. Perhaps a special attraction of some sort? No, Bulstrode's working at the docks now. I don't think he would be up for another round on the beach. Duck laughed. I'm not saying we need Bulstrode. We just need something like him that would gather attention and interest. Sir Topham Hatt smiled. I know just what to do. It will be a risky gamble, but hopefully it will save the small railway in the long run. A few weeks later, the 3 small engines were sitting around the turntable. There were no trucks and hardly any passengers. Everyone was bored. Hey, Frank, have your driver spin the turntable around again. It gives us something to look at. Just then, Sir Topham Hatt walked up. I have some exciting news, he proclaimed. Rex and Jock are coming back to the Arsdale Railway. Bert and Frank gasped. They hadn't seen their friends in a long time. Mike, on the other hand, was a little more skeptical. Huh, he grumbled. I'm not falling for that one again. But a few minutes later, Rex puffed in and screeched to a stop. Hey boys, I'm back from my overhaul. What do you think? The engines cheered. You look spectacular, they said. Do I know you? Asked Frank cheekily. Oh, come on, Frank. You could never forget an engine like me. Then the engines heard a deep whistle. The rails rumbled and the ballast bounced. In a cloud of steam, Jock thundered in and stopped on the turntable. I'm back, he chuckled. Wow, everything looks so different. Bert, you're smaller than I remember. Hey there, Frank, you look really old. And Mike, poor little Mike. I still haven't recovered from that trick you played on me, you know. Mike smiled sheepishly. I can't believe you're both really here, he said. Oh man, Rexy and I have been in overhaul for far too long. We were so excited when we heard the news. Now where are the coaches and the passengers? I want to pull a train real bad. Well, that's the thing, said Frank. Did Sir Topham Hatt not tell you what was going on? Asked Bert. No, he didn't say anything. What's the matter? Well, our railway has been rather empty lately. We haven't had a lot of passengers, and the ballast trains are hit and miss. But no worries. We're hoping you two can bring back the spark, and people will start visiting our railway again. We'll definitely try, laughed Jock. I'd better go sit up on that ledge so that the passengers can see me. It's called a ballast chute, reminded Frank. Oh dear, I bet you he's forgotten everything about our little railway. Regardless, the engines were happy to be reunited with their friends. Jock took it upon himself to try and draw a crowd to the Arsdale Railway, and thought it was very important that he remain stationed on the ballast chute day and night. I'm a very spectacular engine, he said to himself. This railway won't fail with me in charge. But Rex didn't agree. He had been holed up with Jock for years during their overhauls, and had become rather annoyed with his pompous attitude. The other engines, however, lapped it up. Jock is so confident, sighed Mike. If only I could be half the engine that he is. He's very strong, added Bert, and his dedication to the line is quite apparent. I bet you a rainstorm could roll through, and Jock wouldn't move an inch from that spot. He looks very silly up there, huffed Frank. But if that's what saves our railway, then he can do whatever he wants. Rex began to feel unappreciated. His friends only wanted to talk about Jock and how great he was, and they had no interest in him. A few days later, he took a run to stretch his wheels and relearn the line. Near the abandoned mine at Arsdale, he stopped for a rest. So the engine's like someone who's bossy and confident, huh? I can be like that. I can talk about how great I am. I can order everybody about, just like Jock. Let's see how they like that. Rex had made up his mind. He wasn't going to settle for Jock's arrogant attitude anymore. All right, everybody, you have all been sitting around the turntable for years waiting for me to arrive back home. And now that I'm finally here, I think it's time that some work was done. Frank, move your greasy wheels and stop oiling up the track there. Mike, find some ballast cars and fill them with rocks. That's a perfect job for a dull engine like you. Bert, lose the weird accent and start talking like the rest of us. And Jock, get down from there and start pulling your own on this railway. Any engine can sit up there and look pretty, and you've been doing enough of that. The engines were shocked at Rex's comments. What's gotten into you? Asked Bert. Why are you being so mean? Quizzed Mike. You were never like this before. You're acting like a tyrant, added Frank. Bossing everybody about with no plans of working yourself. Oh, I am going to work, he retorted. I'll be taking Jock's place at the top of the chute. That will be my job. Hopefully, my sparkly green paint will lure passengers to the railway, and then my brash attitude can scare them away. Is this about me, Rex? You seem awfully upset. I didn't mean to come off as rude. Well, you have been full of yourself ever since you came back, conceded Frank. I understand Rex's position here, but ordering us about is no way to fix this problem. Frank's right, said Bert. Our railway is in trouble. This is no time for quarreling. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody, said Rex. I was acting really mean just then. You all seemed so happy to see Jock, and I was only trying to fit in. And I'm sorry too, added Jock. That overhaul really got the best of me. I'm no better than the rest of you, even if I can pull heavier and longer trains. But that's not the point. I'm just really happy to be back, and I apologize in advance if I come across as bossy or arrogant. I want to make up for all of that lost time on the rails, you know? Let's all make up for lost time, said Mike. We can return the small railway to its former glory, but it's going to require a lot of work from all of us. That's the spirit, cheered Bert. And it looks like we might have some passengers after all. Jock and Rex, be our guests and show them around our beautiful railway. Although things had gotten off to a rough start, Rex and Jock quickly reconciled and pulled the train together. With the fate of the railway at stake, it was time for the Arsdale engines to come together and put their best wheel forward. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 216, The Maron Station Makeover. The passengers on the island of Sodor are a picky people, and they complain about a variety of things. The rails are too bumpy. James is really rough with the coaches. My shoelace is untied. Oh, bother, groaned Sir Topham Hatt. I'm sorry about all of that. But if there is one complaint that is shared amongst the passengers, it's that they don't like Maron Station. It's too crowded. The engines always overshoot the platform. My shoe is still untied. Eventually, the passengers were so displeased with the station that they ordered Sir Topham Hatt to get rid of it. What a preposterous idea, he laughed. I've heard a lot of crazy things over the years, but getting rid of a mainline station? Simply ridiculous. It won't happen. Just you wait, said the passengers. Watch Gordon come down the hill. He always overshoots the platform. And indeed he did. Although he was braking as hard as he could, Gordon was nowhere near close to stopping by the time he skidded through the station. I'm sorry, sir, he said glumly. It happens every day. The heavy coaches force me down the hill, and the momentum carries me past my stopping point. And another thing, argued the passengers. The platform is too short. Look at this. We have to wait for Gordon to pull forward in order to board the coaches. We don't have this problem at Knapford or Vickerstown. Well, this isn't Knapford or Vickerstown. This is a small, quaint station next to the airport.
Oh, that noisy airport. You can't hear anything when that plane takes off. You'll miss the guard's whistle if you aren't paying attention.
Sir Topham Hatt was losing patience. Gordon, are they always like this? Yes, but they're even worse today, he muttered. We have such fine stations on this railway, sir, but they think every one of them should be like stations on the mainland. Well, we don't have the space or the money, said Sir Topham Hatt. It looks like the passengers will just have to deal with it. But the passengers were furious.
You get rid of this miserable station, they ordered, or we'll call the railway inspector.
Gordon gasped. The last time that the railway inspector had visited Sodor, he had stayed for months and nitpicked everything. But Sir Topham Hatt just laughed. I'm not scared of him. Do your worst. Carry on, Gordon. But then things started to go downhill. The next day it was Henry's turn to pull the express. He overshot the platform as well, and when he was finally ready to leave, he was switched off the main line by an incompetent signalman. The following week, Jeremy skidded off the runway during takeoff and nearly crashed into the station building. To make matters worse, workmen were prospecting in the mines underneath Gordon's Hill, and now the engines were delayed when blasting was occurring. The passengers were incessant in their fight against Maron Station, and at last Sir Topham Hatt was forced to give in. Very well, we will give the passengers what they want. Starting tomorrow, Gordon, you will not stop at Maron Station. Simply carry on to Great Waterton and unload your passengers there.
But what will happen to the station building? Asked Edward. Surely it can still be useful in some other capacity.
The engines soon found out. The Sodor Lumber Company quickly moved into the building and set up shop where the station used to be.
Well, this is interesting, said James. I guess they want to be closer to Gordon's Hill, in case some of the trees ever grow back.
Excuse you, but the trees will grow back. It's a slow process, right, Henry?
But Henry was too excited to listen. The lumber company has done a terrific job of managing my forest, he said. I'm sure they'll do wonders here. But there was soon trouble. Wilbert now had to haul the log cars to the new location, which was nowhere near the rest of the lumber company. He ended up blocking the important trains and made the passengers extremely late. The main line is no place for a lumber company, they told Sir Topham Hatt. Remove it at once.
But I already got rid of the station because you didn't like that, and now you want me to get rid of the lumber company? Something needs to stay in that building, you know. How about something not meddlesome for a change?
Like an ice cream factory, chuckled one of the passengers. There isn't anything wrong with ice cream.
The passengers weren't entirely serious about the idea, but Sir Topham Hatt saw his chance. A few days later, the lumber company was gone and a new ice cream factory had taken its place.
What's this? They cried. We didn't approve of this idea.
It was suggested by one of your own, laughed Sir Topham Hatt. If this doesn't appease you all, then I get to bring my station back. I have done everything I can to make you all happy, but there comes a point when I can only change so much. Good luck.
Not wanting to be shown up by Sir Topham Hatt, the passengers were determined to make this new building work. But just like with the last company, the ice cream factory was noisy, messy, and its new trains got in the way of the express.
Oh, sorry, James, said Dennis. I have to drop off these milk tankers right now.
No, Dennis, take your time. The later these passengers are, the better. They have been nothing but rude to Sir Topham Hatt and deserve to be taught a lesson. In another attempt to get the passengers to cave, Diesel left the dairy cars to sit in the hot sun and then accidentally ran them off the rails at Wellsworth Station. The horrible smell of spoiled milk drifted through the crowd. "This was a terrible idea," they gasped. "Not only is the ice cream factory a major inconvenience, but there's no way to get to the airport from the express." "We can't walk from Great Waterton to catch the plane," said another. "We need a station there again." Trevor couldn't help but laugh. "Some people will never be pleased," he said wisely. In a rather unsuspecting turn of events, the passengers quickly petitioned for a new station at the bottom of the hill, and Sir Topham Hatt happily reopened Maron Station. Although there were still some problems, the passengers didn't dare complain. They had realized an engine overrunning the platform at the station was better than no station at all. "You sure showed them, sir," said Thomas. "Let me ask, how did you know this whole idea would work?" Sir Topham Hatt laughed. "To be honest, I didn't, but I know this railway very well, and while I appreciate the passengers' enthusiasm and their suggestions, there are some things that you just don't change. Maron Station is a wonderful building. It may be a little crowded, but I don't think we'll hear any complaints for a long time." Thomas smiled and puffed away deep in thought. If there was ever any doubt about his ability to control the Northwestern Railway, Sir Topham Hatt had certainly laid those suspicions to rest. Maron Station wouldn't be going anywhere anytime soon. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 217, Toby's Turntable Fable. The turntable near Vickerstown sheds had always been problematic for the engines. Due to its proximity near the ocean, strong winds would sometimes flow in and make it hard to spin. And when the turntable wasn't cooperating, trains would be forced to stop and engines could become trapped in the sidings. "Rest here at your own risk," said Toby one day. "Those sheds may look comfortable, but when the wind picks up, this turntable won't budge for anyone." Most of the International engines heeded Toby's warning, and even when the slightest breeze came through, they made sure to evacuate just in case. But some of the engines thought Toby was only joking. "How absurd," laughed Mallard. "Any proper railway with a proper turntable wouldn't let the wind dictate its engines. How does Spencer deal with this constant malarkey?" "Why do you care?" asked Sampson. "You're too big for the turntable anyway. They'd have to saw your tender in half in order to make you fit. And that's a good thing, you know. Clearly Sodor can't accommodate someone famous like me. Their turntables aren't big enough for the fastest engine in the world. An engine's tender is very important, but you wouldn't understand that, you cabless little tank engine." Mallard wasn't making any new friends fast. He was arrogant and rude and was constantly looking to put down the other engines. "Oh, are there no photographers here? Huh, shameful. I guess I'll go somewhere else where I'm more appreciated." "You know what would be really nice," asked Caitlin, "if Mallard would leave Sodor, like right now, and take that bossy Vinny engine with him." "You can say that again," huffed Murdoch. "It seems as though the bigger the tender, the bigger the ego. No offense, Flying Scotsman." "None taken," he chuckled. "Mallard is definitely from another era in history, when steam engines were revered and glorified for their accomplishments. He likes to live in the past, where he's the most important engine in the world." "But Mallard shouldn't be the face for all of us steam engines at the Great Railway Show," said Murdoch. "Someone like Caitlin here would be a much better example. It's time that he was cut down to size, if you ask me." Murdoch's wish came sooner than expected. A few days later, Mallard was preparing for his last chance qualifying race to get into the speed competition.
I mustn't botch this, he muttered. One burst safety valve was enough embarrassment for a lifetime. Failing to make the speed competition would be utterly catastrophic. I must get some rest so that I can perform to my maximum capabilities.
Mallard was only planning on dozing for a while, but he ended up falling asleep and was soon snoring away. Then the wind picked up. The other engines didn't want to become stuck in the sheds if the turntable stopped working, so they decided to leave. "Should we wake Mallard up?" asked Ashima. "It would be mean to leave him here alone."
You can, suggested Ivan, but the last time I woke him up, he yelled at me for ruining his sleep. I won't make that mistake again.
The two engines quickly departed and left the sleeping Mallard behind. Now the wind had really picked up, and it was so strong that the shed door slammed shut.
Oh my, what was that? Ivan, I've told you. Oh, he's not here. In fact, no one's here. What time is it? I should start heading to the mainland, I suppose.
"You're not going anywhere anytime soon," chuckled Toby.
What are you doing here? Come to brag about more turntable nonsense, have you? I'm sorry, but I have a race to run.
Sure thing," said Gator. "Good luck getting on the turntable, though." Mallard gasped. The wind was so strong that the turntable bridge was now moving by itself.
I'm not worried, he said bravely. Once I get on it, my weight will balance things out and it won't spin anymore.
"But getting on it is the hard part," emphasized Toby, "especially when it won't stop moving." Mallard realized what Toby was getting at. With the turntable spinning freely, there was no way to stop it in his direction so that he could get to the mainland.
I'm fine, he muttered. This wind won't last long, even if it does look like a storm is rolling in.
"Hey, would you keep it down out here?" shouted Vinny. "I'm trying to sleep, man. Some of us have big competitions to prepare for, you know."
Oh, aren't you special? Well, I have a race in a few minutes, and I'm trapped in the sheds with you.
"What? Trapped? No way. Just get on the turntable and leave."
I can't because it won't stop spinning. Oh, this is terrible. Now I'm surely going to miss the race, and I won't be able to compete in the fastest engine competition.
Just then, Spencer puffed up. "Mallard, what are you still doing here? I was on my way to watch you race. Come on, you're going to be late."
I'm stuck here, he shouted. These dreadful turntables by the sea. You know, the mainland doesn't have this problem.
Toby couldn't help but chuckle. "Oh, do you think this is funny?" asked Spencer. "Well, you're trapped here too." "Yes, but my trains are over for today. I warned you that something like this could happen, Mallard, but you just laughed at me."
Come on, Spencer. Stick your buffers out there and try and jam the turntable. I'm not sticking my buffers anywhere near that revolving trap. Thank you very much. You do it yourself. But I have a competition coming up. I can't risk damaging this perfect body.
"And yet I can. I'm not risking my beautiful buffers to save yours." "What a bunch of losers," yelled Vinny. "Let me give it a shot. I can't miss my competition either." Vinny puffed to the edge of the turntable and eyed it suspiciously. Sometimes the track would nearly line up, but then the wind would come along and swing it the other way.
Hurry, please. They'll disqualify me if I'm not on time.
"Hey, I'm trying here. It's not as easy as it looks." At last, the turntable swung the right way, and Vinny managed to get his wheels on the track. "Hey, there we go. Look at what Vinny just did. Stopped a moving turntable with his bare buffers. If that's not impressive, then Hey, whoa!"
Sorry, but I've got a race to run. Spin me around, quickly.
You can't be spun around, said Toby. You're too long for the turntable. The only way you can go is forwards. But Mallard's line was blocked. He had shoved Vinny off the track and into Spencer, and both were derailed.
Heh, that's what you get for messing with big old Vinny here.
Mallard's smile faded. The wind was still howling, and he felt himself being squeezed as the turntable tried to move. Suddenly, his tender was ripped from the rails, and it overturned in spectacular fashion. "Now you've trapped all of us," said Gator. "Nobody's getting through this area of the island for a long time."
Nice going, Mallard, murmured Spencer. You've doomed everyone.
It wasn't until late that night, when the wind subsided, that the workmen could free Mallard and his tender from the mess. His frame was badly bent, and he was going to need extensive repairs. "Spencer, take your brother back to the mainland," said Sir Topham Hatt. "He's insulted my engines and ruined my turntable, and I won't be paying for his repairs. You may be a record holder, but you still have a lot to learn about getting along with others. Maybe one day your behavior will catch up with your accomplishments." The next day, Mallard was pushed away by Spencer, and the engines were happy to see him go. "No matter what your accomplishments are, or what the records may say about you, if you can't be nice to others, then no one cares," said Toby wisely. And he was right. The fastest engine in the world had been sent away from Sodor in disgrace. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 218, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Bulgy's bridge on the Little Western Branch Line had been in disrepair for quite some time. The railway refused to fix it because they thought it was Bulgy's fault that the bridge was falling apart, and the bus company refused to fix it because they thought the engines were weakening the bridge. Before long, the line was becoming unsafe to both trains and vehicles, and everyone was cross. "You better fix that bridge of yours, Bulgy," said Oliver. "The rails bend and creak when I pass over them, and one day it's going to collapse. Hopefully when I'm not pulling any passengers." "Huh," grunted Bulgy. "You want it fixed so bad, then go do the repair yourself. You big fat engines are the reason it's fallen apart." The engines on the Little Western were concerned. They held a meeting at Tidmouth Sheds one night. "That bridge is a danger to the passengers, to the road vehicles, and to us engines," said Duck. "We must do something before it's too late." "Surely Sir Topham Hatt would fix it, right?" asked Douglas. "We can't count on that," said Oliver. "He and Bulgy's bus company have been arguing about this for years. It's time for us to act now." "I have an idea," murmured Ryan, "but it's not exactly the nicest thing to do. But I can guarantee that the bridge would get fixed right away." "Well, let's hear it," shouted Donald. "Anything's better than landing on my head." The engines listened to Ryan's plan. "Not bad," chuckled Oliver. "I'll go talk to the pack tomorrow morning." The next day he visited the Sodor Construction Company. "I'm here on behalf of Bulgy and the bus company. There's a bridge between Tidmouth Halt and Bluff's Cove that needs repairs. Would you go fix it up, please?" "Sure thing," said Jack. "But whom shall we contact when the job is done?" "Oh, talk to Bulgy. This is his project. I'm just the messenger." Everyone smiled and set to work. While Bulgy was out delivering passengers for the day, the pack came in and repaired the bridge. It looked the same as before, but it was much more structurally stable, and the engines didn't bounce when they went over it. "What's all this about?" asked Bulgy that evening. "About time the railway came along and repaired my bridge. I was getting tired of rocks falling on me at night." "Oh, the railway didn't do this," said Alfie. "Your bus company did. They told us to come fix the bridge. You can call Miss Jenny when you're ready to settle up." But Bulgy was cross. He knew the bus company hadn't ordered the bridge to be repaired, and now he was going to be stuck paying for the work. "Those slimy steam engines," he muttered. The next day, Bulgy roared into Knapford Station and refused to leave until Sir Topham Hatt came to see him. "One of your engines told the pack to repair my bridge, and now I'm the one who has to pay the bill. Explain yourself." Sir Topham Hatt chuckled. "I guess my engines took matters into their own hands, or wheels. But don't worry, Bulgy. I had George pave all of those roads near Tidmouth Halt, so it's only fair that you fix your bridge." Bulgy was livid. "I'm a bus, not some money-making machine like your famous engines here. If you stick me with the bill, then I'll shut down the bridge." "Good luck," laughed Percy. "The passengers will have your hubcaps if you do that." But Bulgy wasn't kidding. He drove straight to the Sodor Construction Company with a devious plan in the works. "You guys did a half-decent job at making my bridge look nice," he admitted. "Why not finish the project and turn it into something really special? Here's what I have in mind." The next day, the engines were shocked to find out that Bulgy had turned his bridge into a toll booth. He was now charging the road vehicles to pass through. "This won't go over well," said Ryan, and it wasn't. Isabella was most upset. "But I just helped build everything," she cried, "and now you won't let me pass through?" Stop making a scene and move on. But just this once. Nobody gets a free ride through here anymore." Bertie was cross as well. "You're giving a bad name to all of us other buses out there. Stop with this nonsense." "No can do. The railway wouldn't fix the bridge that their big engines keep squishing, so this is the compromise. Now pay the toll, please." But Bertie was not about to be outdone. He quickly backed up and drove around the toll booth. "Well, I didn't quite think that would happen," he muttered. "Hey, Bulgy," said George, "how about letting a good friend through, for old time's sake?" I'm not making any money this way. If only I could stop the engines from using the tracks. Then this railway would really come to a halt." "Then go sit up on the bridge and refuse to move," suggested George. "They can't run you over, or at least I don't think they would." Bulgy smiled. "That's a plan if I've ever heard one." And he promptly drove onto the tracks, up the hill, and parked right on top of his bridge. Just then, Belle came along and skidded to a stop. "Bulgy, get off the rails," she yelled. "What are you doing up here?" "I'm not moving until you pay the toll," he grunted. "This new bridge ain't free, you know." Belle was cross. "I have to get back to the search and rescue center," she argued. "If there's an emergency, I won't be able to respond in time, and there will be confusion and delay." Just then, Duck puffed up. "Oh dear," he grumbled. "Bulgy, get off the line. There are some important trains coming through here soon." "Then everything will grind to a halt. I'll stay here all day if I have to." Eventually, the trains piled up and everyone was delayed. Sir Topham Hatt came to see what the problem was. "You can do whatever you want on the roads, Bulgy, but as soon as it affects my railway, then we have a problem. If you get off this bridge, then I will pay for the repairs." Bulgy laughed. "That's what I'm talking about. I win, you lose. Ha 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 ha. Oh, wait, I can't move. I must be out of gas or something. Give me a push, will you?" But Sir Topham Hatt had other ideas. He promptly placed Bulgy under the bridge and locked him in his own toll booth. "I once did something similar to Henry because he wouldn't move from a tunnel. Now you won't move from your bridge, so I think I will keep you here until you are ready to be really useful again." Bulgy was fuming. Belle couldn't help but laugh. "I've heard about trolls living under bridges, but I thought those were only in fairy tales," she chuckled. "I'll come hose you down if you start to smell real bad. Don't let the chickens in this time." But Bulgy didn't say a word. He had refused to change and was now paying the price for his actions. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 219, Nightmare on Sodor. One afternoon, Edward wasn't feeling well, so he decided to go rest at Tidmouth Sheds. The other engines hadn't finished their jobs yet, so Edward was all alone. "Maybe I'll feel better if I get some sleep," he mumbled. "Then I can wake up early and get a quick start on tomorrow's jobs." Pretty soon, Edward was asleep, but when he woke up the next day, he could sense that things were different. "Where are all of the other engines?" he gasped. "Oh dear, I must have overslept and everyone's gone to work. This is terrible." He quickly rushed out of the sheds and headed towards Knapford Station, but a strange engine was blocking his path. "Excuse me, but I'm running late and I need to get through. I don't know who you are, but Just then, the engine reversed and Edward gasped. "James, what happened to you? You look like you were in a horrible accident." "Hello there. Lovely day, isn't it? What do you think of my beautiful red paint?" Edward had to squint to see what he was looking at. "Oh, yes, I can barely see some red on you," he said. "But what happened? Why do you look like this?" "Nothing's happened. I'm James the Red Engine, of course. You look like you've seen something horrifying." "I actually have," he murmured. "But never mind. You just look different than the last time I saw you. There's a lot more brown on your coat than I remember." "Silly old Eddie," laughed James. "Anyway, Gordon and I have to pull this giant birthday cake in an unsafe and highly contagious manner to the docks for a birthday party. Goodbye." Edward was startled. "That was weird," he muttered. "I'm going to talk to Sir Topham Hatt about this." But when Edward puffed into Knapford Station, things only got stranger. "Percy! Stephen! Toby! Diesel! What's going on?" "Ah, hello there, my friend," said Percy. "You must be one of the new international engines." "No, my name's Edward, and I've lived here on Sodor for a very long time." "Oh, yes, Edward," murmured Stephen. "That sounds vaguely familiar." "What happened to you all? Where are your bright and colorful paint jobs? You all look so dull and unfinished now." "Silly goose," laughed Diesel. "This is how we've always looked. What's wrong with you, Edwin? That's another thing. Why doesn't anybody remember me?" "Oh, don't take it personal," said Stephen. "There are a lot of new engines on Sodor nowadays. It's easy to forget some of the less important ones." "Less important? Where's Sir Topham Hatt? I need to speak with him about all of this." "Here I am," came a voice. Edward looked over and gasped. Sir Topham Hatt looked very different indeed. "Oh my, you've changed too. And Winston, you're almost as long as I am." Sir Topham Hatt looked at Winston. "Who is this again?" he whispered. "I believe that is Edward, sir." "Oh, right. Edward, my, number 2 engine. What brings you to Knapford? I thought you weren't allowed back here ever since I banished you to Wellsworth." "Sir, there is something very strange going on right now. All of the engines have lost their normal coats of paint, and everyone's acting differently.
Percy didn't remember me, Steven has an extra tender, and Diesel is really happy for some reason. Oh, Edward, I'm one of the happiest engines on the railway, chuckled Diesel. What would you expect me to be? Grumpy or troublesome? Sir Topham Hatt laughed. Edward, you are worrying about nothing. Now the rest of you have jobs to do. Percy, please pull these open-air candy trucks without a brake van to Ulfstead Castle. Ew, gasped Edward. This one's overflowing. That can't possibly be sanitary, sir. Stephen, please take these animals to the animal park. But those trucks aren't safe, insisted Edward. The sides aren't tall enough. The animals could jump out and run away. And Diesel, take the aquarium cars to the quarry, for some reason. That will be all. But sir, there's a shark in that car, and it probably needs some water. But Sir Topham Hatt just laughed. Oh, Edward, you are being very troublesome. I think it's time we talked about your new coat of paint. No thank you, sir. I heard something about a birthday party at the docks. I think I'll go there and see what's happening. And Edward rushed away. He didn't stop puffing until he had reached the docks. Oh no, more weird engines. And Cranky, what's happened to you? And what's with these annoying brown pieces of track? Can somebody explain what is going on? Ahoy there, new engine, said Salty. Come to help at the docks, have ya? I'm not new, Salty, he protested. Where is Thomas? I'm hoping he can clear up some of this confusion. Here he comes right now, shouted Stanley. Just then Thomas puffed in. Edward rolled his eyes. Oh, Thomas, not you too. And what's happened to Annie and Clarabelle? They've lost their roofs. No, Gordon. Annie and Clarabelle have always been like this. Now our 2 remaining passengers can get the most enjoyable ride on the railway. At least when it's not raining. I'm not Gordon, he shouted. I'm Edward. Does anybody remember me? Just then, Sir Topham Hatt and several other engines appeared out of nowhere. Thank you so much for joining me here to celebrate Thomas's birthday, he said loudly. Frankly, I've forgotten how old you are, Thomas, and to be honest, I don't really care, but it's a cause for celebration either way. Ah, here's the cake. Since you are an engine and obviously can't eat any of it, I guess I will save it for myself. The rest of the engines laughed, but Edward was feeling sad. I wish we could stay and celebrate, he continued, but Thomas and I are off to see the world. Sodor has become a very boring place lately, so we are going to be traveling around in this special coach. See you all in a few years, maybe. What? Gasped Edward. Sir, you can't do that. You and Thomas have duties and responsibilities on this railway. You can't just get up and leave. Oh, this is so confusing. Where are the rest of my friends, like Henry and Toby? Surely they'll have something reasonable to say. But the engines immediately fell silent. Oh, whispered Thomas, we don't talk about them anymore. Toby was placed in a museum so that he could be preserved before it was too late, said Gordon. And Henry, well, let's just say that he didn't see the positives of the natural warmth of wood like we did, so I had that troublesome engine scrapped. On a similar note, Edward, I suggest you go get upgraded so you can look like everybody else here. We wouldn't want your bright blue paint to become a distraction. I won't, sir, said Edward defiantly. You all look horrible. You're not painted anymore, the bigger engines have been shrunk down, and some of your faces are just awful. I won't be a part of this change. And Edward raced away. I need to get out of here, he gasped. Maybe if I... Oh, Rusty, what are you doing on these tracks? We're all the same gauge now! Look out! And the two engines collided in a huge crash. Just then, Edward jolted awake. "What's wrong, Edward?" asked Thomas. "Were you having a bad dream?" I guess I was," he gasped. "Oh my, Thomas, you look normal. So do you, Percy. And Toby and Henry, you're back. Oh, this is wonderful. You all look beautiful just the way you are."
"What's the matter with you?" asked Gordon. "Some strange dream, I would imagine."
"Oh, it was the worst nightmare any engine could ever have. But I'm glad it was just a dream and nothing more. Sorry if I disturbed you all. Let's go back to sleep, shall we?"
And the rest of the engines closed their eyes. But Edward stayed awake a little bit longer than everyone else. He wanted to savor their presence as long as he could. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 220, Jock Beats the Clock. The Arsdale Railway's new plan to attract more visitors wasn't working. The passengers were thrilled to see Rex and Jock in the yard at Arlesburg West, but they didn't have any incentive to go ride on the trains. Sir Topham Hatt soon realized this and quickly thought of a new plan. "I will be building a new clock tower on the line immediately," he announced one morning. "It will be the grandest clock tower on the entire island, and people will flock from all over just to see it."
"Great," muttered Mike. "Now the passengers will be able to see when I'm running late."
"This will be a very big project," he continued, "and the line will be closed for the next few days while the building commences. But I'm hoping to get it done as soon as possible."
"What?" gasped Bert. "No more trains for the next few days? What are we going to do here?"
"I imagine you'll find something to keep you busy, but as soon as it is finished, we must start pulling the trains to keep the passengers entertained. I fear that if this doesn't work, the future of the Arsdale Railway is up in the air." Sir Topham Hatt didn't mean to leave on such a solemn note, but the engines realized the severity of the situation.
"We must make this work," said Rex firmly. "I really don't want to go back to some workshop for who knows how long." "Worst yet, we could be sold to other railways and separated," added Frank. "But let's hope it doesn't come to that." A few days later, the pack began working on the clock tower, and the Arsdale Railway was cut in half. With the only through line blocked by the construction, the little engines had very little to do. "I've sent Bert to Arsdale so that we can prepare for the grand reopening down there," said Sir Topham Hatt. "In the meantime, please stay out of trouble and offer any assistance that you can to the pack. The sooner the clock tower is completed, the sooner the railway reopens." But the engines soon grew bored. With only the turntable and ballast chute located in the yard, there were limited activities that could keep them occupied. "Let's spice things up," said Jock eagerly. "Look, we've got these empty coaches here. Let's play a game or something." "A game with the coaches?" asked Rex. "How are we going to do that?"
"I think I've got an idea. Watch this."
And Jock lined up a coach, gave it a big bump, and sent it rolling down the rails. It stopped in a siding just before the track dipped into a ditch.
"Let's see who can get a coach closest to the edge," said Mike.
"Right on. All right, that's my attempt. You can go next, Rexy."
Rex found a coach and bumped it as well. It didn't go as far as Jock's, but it was a good first attempt.
"Now you're up, Frank. Show us what you've got."
"I'm not playing your silly game," he murmured. "I'm too old for this nonsense."
"Fine, your loss," laughed Jock. "All right, Mikey, you're the last engine to go."
Mike wanted to win really bad,
So he gave his coach such a huge shove that they all crashed into each other and overturned in the ditch. "Whoops," he said. "I guess I am a lot stronger than I think I am." But Rex and Jock were horrified. "Oh no! The coaches have been damaged, and we don't have a crane to get them out. This was a terrible idea." "Let me try and reach one," said Rex. "We need them for when the clock tower is finished. Otherwise, the passengers won't get to see our railway." Rex slowly inched his way to the end of the siding, but he accidentally went too far and soon found his front wheels firmly stuck in the swamp. Jock tried to pull him out, but he ended up breaking the coupling on his tender. "Oh, Rexy, I didn't mean to do that. Are you all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I guess I'm going to be in this ditch for a while, though." Just then, Sir Topham Hatt walked up. "Excellent news, everyone! The clock tower is ahead of schedule and is going to be completed tomorrow. My, the coaches! And Rex! What are you all doing in there?" "It was my fault, sir," said Jock. "I thought this would be a fun way to kill some time since we had nothing to do." Sir Topham Hatt shook his head. "I don't blame you all for getting bored, but we can't divert any help from the clock tower to get you out, Rex. You'll have to stay there until the construction is done." "That's all right. I have a history of sliding off the rails and having to wait for help," he chuckled. Sir Topham Hatt turned to Jock. "Bert has the remaining coaches down at Arsdale. As soon as the tower is completed, you will need to rush down there and bring them back before the first train is scheduled to depart. Can you do that, Jock?" "Yes, sir," he said confidently. "You can count on me." The next day, the final touches were being applied to the clock tower. Jock waited nervously at the bottom of the hill. "Just a few moments, Jock," called Kelly. "When the drawbridge lowers, that's your sign that it's clear to go." Jock looked around anxiously. "The fate of the Arsdale Railway lies upon your wheels," said Mike quietly. "If the passengers see that our first return train is late, they'll never ride with us again." "Not to worry, Mikey. I've got 10 minutes to get to Arsdale and back with the coaches. I can get this done." Suddenly the drawbridge dropped and the line was open. "Go, Jock, go!" cried Mike. "Make us proud!" And Jock rushed up the hill. He sprinted down the line and was at Arsdale in a matter of minutes. "Here are the coaches," he gasped. "But where's Bert? Where are you, Bert?" "I'm over here," he said quietly. "I've been forced to sleep in this mine during the past few days, and I'm pretty sure it's haunted. At least you're here now." "No time to talk. I have to take these coaches back to the station for the first train. Move out of the way." Bert quickly reversed and cleared the line for Jock. Without stopping, he pushed the coaches back the way he came. With just moments to spare, Jock passed through the clock tower and arrived back in Arlesburg West. "Yes, I did it! That was... uh-oh." But the coaches hadn't been coupled to Jock, and as soon as he stopped, they ran into Rex at the edge of the ditch. "Oh, that was a close call," cried Frank. "Turns out you were useful after all, Rex." "Hooray!" he cried. "I helped." Jock brought the coaches back and Mike was coupled up to the first train. "Take your time," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Let the passengers savor the experience. And be sure to go slow through that clock tower. I want them to look at it for as long as they can." Mike smiled and puffed away. Jock was out of breath, but he managed a parting whistle to the debut train. "Well done, Jock. You beat the clock with seconds to spare, and now a new era of the Arsdale Railway begins. I was starting to think we had lost all of our coaches to that ditch over there, but you retrieved them in spectacular fashion, and very well may have just saved this railway. You should feel proud of yourself."
Thank you, sir, but this was a team effort. Bert cleared the line for me, Rex stopped the coaches, Mike pulled the train, and Frank... Well, I'm not exactly sure what Frank did, but he was a big help too. This is our railway, and we'll do everything we can to keep it running right on track.
Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 221, The Crosby Coalition. Logan and Hector are good friends and they enjoy helping each other out at the Crosby Coal Depot. While most of the trucks there are troublesome, Hector is nice and keeps them all in line. But one day, Hector was taken away for another job on the other side of the island. The trucks saw their chance and quickly began scheming up a plan.
"Without Hector here to protect little Logan," said Fred, "we can have some serious fun at his expense. Let's think of something truly tricky."
A few days later, Logan was putting some cars in line when Fred spoke up.
"Hey there, pal. Christmas is coming up. Are you excited at all?"
"Oh, yes," replied Logan. "It's the most wonderful time of the year."
"Well, let me ask you something. What do good children receive in their stockings on Christmas Day?"
Presents and other fun goodies, like candy canes, I think."
"And what do naughty children get in their stockings?"
"Maybe nothing? Or a lump of coal? At least that's what I've heard."
"Exactly," chuckled Fred. "And do you know where Santa Claus gets all of his coal for the naughty children?"
Probably from a coal mine up near the North Pole. Or maybe he mines it himself. Santa seems like the type of guy who would go out into the fields with a pickaxe and...
"Don't get distracted," shouted Fred. "He gets it from here. Santa Claus gets all of the coal for the naughty children at the Crosby Coal Depot. How does that make you feel?"
Logan's smile quickly disappeared. "That makes me feel awful," he said sadly. "I had no idea. That explains why we're so busy all the time. Santa Claus is our biggest customer."
Yeah, sure. Anyway, the trucks and myself were thinking, as a way to save all of the naughty children from disappointment this year, how about we stop producing coal? That way, Santa will have nothing to give them, and maybe he'll move them all to the nice list for, goodness sake.
"That's actually a really smart idea," exclaimed Logan. "Santa can't give the naughty children coal if there's no coal around."
"Exactly," said Fred. "What do you say we form an alliance? You, me, and the rest of the trucks. We'll pledge to stop producing coal and save the poor children from a dirty Christmas."
"Works for me. See, you troublesome trucks aren't so troublesome after all. That's really nice of you to be looking out for others like that." The trucks giggled.
"This is perfect," they laughed. "The coal depot will shut down, we'll get the holidays off, and Logan will be at the top of Sir Topham Hatt's naughty list."
The next day, Logan rounded up the remaining coal trucks and shunted them away.
"Where are you taking us?" they asked. "Hopefully to some lonely sighting where we can get a good rest," suggested Fred.
But Logan had other ideas. Just because the coal depot isn't active anymore doesn't mean you can't be useful somewhere else. That's why you're going to be quarry trucks from now on.
"What?" they cried. "This wasn't part of the plan." "Take us back," yelled Fred. "We don't want to be here."
But Logan wouldn't listen and reversed away. Bill and Ben looked at the newcomers.
"We'll have some fun with you guys," they chuckled.
Back at the coal depot, Logan was preparing to leave Crosby for the last time. "I'm going to miss this job," he said sadly, But at the same time, I also think it's important that those naughty children don't receive coal on Christmas Day. If this is what it takes, then I'll go find work somewhere else." Just then, Sam puffed up. "Hello, Logan, old friend. My word, I haven't seen the coal depot this empty in forever. What's going on here?" "I'm closing up shop, Sam. Coal is nothing but trouble, and I really want all of the children out there to have a very Merry Christmas." Sam couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're closing the coal depot because of some children? And what's this about Christmas?" "Yes, I don't want the children on Santa's naughty list to receive coal in their stockings. That's just cruel. By shutting down the Crosby coal depot, maybe more children will end up on the nice list this year." Sam was in shock. "Logan, Santa Claus doesn't get his coal from the Crosby coal depot. Who told you that?" "The trucks did. We agreed to stop producing coal in hopes that everyone can have a Merry Christmas this year." Sam chuckled. "Oh dear, Logan, I'm sorry to say this, but I think you've been swindled by those troublesome trucks. They don't want you to do your job anymore because that means they won't have to be filled with dirty, nasty coal." "Oh," whispered Logan, "that makes a lot more sense. And when it comes to Santa Claus and his coal needs, there are way more boys and girls on his nice list than the naughty list. But you don't need to worry about something like that." Logan quickly realized he had been duped. "Those troublesome trucks," he said crossly, "they nearly had me." "It's all right, Logan," chuckled Sam. "We all make mistakes. Besides, you can't stop producing coal. We steam engines need it to keep moving around. The whole railway would come to a stop if we ran out of coal." "You're right, Sam. I'm going to get right back to work as soon as I find those trucks." Logan quickly made his way to the quarry and couldn't help but laugh when he saw what Bill and Ben were up to. "I'm sorry to ruin the fun," he said, "but I need these trucks after all. Turns out, coal is very important to the island of Sodor, and I can't stop what I'm doing." "That's a wise move," said Bill. "You can have your trucks back," laughed Ben. "These cars aren't China clay material. They complain too much." "This dirt is too heavy," said one. "I feel like I'm going to collapse." "I think I got some dust in my eye," shouted another. Fred hadn't even been filled with rocks yet, and he was looking very remorseful. "Please take us back to the coal depot," he begged. "It's awful here. We were wrong to try and trick you." "That's right," said Logan. "Come on, you sad lot. Let's get back to work." Immediately, Logan shunted all of the trucks under the hopper and filled them to the brim with dusty coal. The trucks were sad that their plan hadn't worked, but figured a return to their normal job was a fitting punishment. "If there's anyone out there that deserves coal this Christmas, it's you guys," said Logan firmly. Just then, Sam puffed in with Hector. "Hey, Logan," he said, "I'm ready to get back to work with you. Anything interesting happen while I was gone?" Logan looked at Sam. Sam looked at Logan. Logan looked at the trucks. There was an awkward pause. "Nope," they said. "Just business as usual at the Crosby Coal Depot." Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 222, Polar Express Coming Through. The Great Railway Show was coming to a close and the final events were about to take place. To everyone's surprise, Gordon had made it to the final round of the speed competition. He was up against some of the fastest engines in the world, like Caitlin and Hugo, but was still determined nonetheless. "We are all so proud of you, Gordon," said Sir Topham Hatt. "You've worked very hard towards this goal. Please, take all of the time you need in order to prepare for your race." "Thank you, sir, but what about my passengers? The holidays are the busiest time of the year. I feel rather guilty running off to compete in a race when I have trains to pull."
"We'll cover for you," said James. "Not every engine gets a chance to compete in the Great Railway Show. Just look what happened to Mallard and Spencer. You can't pass up this opportunity."
"Besides, I think I have the perfect substitute engine in mind that will make the passengers very happy."
And Sir Topham Hatt was right. The next day, while Gordon was out training, the Flying Scotsman buffered up to the express and pulled it across the island. The passengers were more than thrilled to have such a historic engine heading their train.
"Don't tell Gordon this," said Henry, "but I think you pull the express better than him."
"I think he already knows that," chuckled the Flying Scotsman. "But he's in the final race at the Great Railway Show, and I'm not. So who's the real winner in the family?"
Then the weather turned chilly. Every morning, the engines would wake up and find frost on the rails. Even a magnificent engine like the Flying Scotsman had trouble getting going in the cold weather.
"I've always had a tricky fire, and the freezing temperatures don't help," he grumbled. "I hope I can get started before it's time to pull the express."
But he couldn't. Even after a push to the platform from Edward, the Flying Scotsman wasn't ready.
"Normally, I wouldn't mind having another engine pull the train," said Sir Topham Hatt, "but I had these special express coaches brought out for your voyage to Vickerstown. There are some high-profile Great Railway Show officials that may be at the station when you arrive tonight. I want to provide a good first impression of our railway and thought these green coaches would nicely match your paint. But if you can't get going, then I will have to find another engine. The express must not be late."
The Flying Scotsman tried as hard as he could, but he was still short on steam when the train was scheduled to leave.
"All right, let's bring in James. We don't have a moment to lose."
James had been resting in the yard after another train and quickly sprung into action. But Philip was shunting some tall trucks, and the two accidentally collided, sending the freight cars off the line.
"Oh, bother. This won't do, James. You need your tender to pull the train. Never mind the mess. Let's get Henry up here."
"But all of the other engines are trapped," said the Flying Scotsman. "Look! The crash has blocked the only exit out of the yard. We need an engine strong enough to pull the express who's currently not stuck there." But it was the middle of the day and not a lot of extra engines were around. Sir Topham Hatt began to fear the worst when a green diesel suddenly rolled in. "Excuse me," he said quietly, "but where is the diesel works from here? I need to go refuel on oil."
"There's our engine," chuckled the Flying Scotsman.
"You look strong enough. Can you pull this heavy train to Vickerstown?" "I suppose I can," murmured the engine. "I don't have a lot of experience pulling coaches, but I'll give it my best shot."
"Excellent! Quickly, to the front of the train. We haven't got a moment to lose."
The diesel rapidly reversed and was coupled to the coaches. As soon as the guard's whistle blew, he started off and glided away down the line. "Look at how graceful he goes!" cried Edward.
"I didn't even catch his name," said Sir Topham Hatt.
"Who is that engine?"
"His name is Bear, sir.
He is a mainland diesel that I met at Vickerstown sheds a few weeks ago. He's a very compassionate engine with a good heart."
"Well, that sounds promising. All the same, he doesn't know the way. Edward, please follow him and make sure he doesn't leave the main line."
Edward whistled and raced after him, but Bear was managing just fine until he was diverted at the junction to Ulfstead Castle. Steven sensed something was amiss and decided to intervene. "Hey, you there!" he shouted. "You're the express engine, right?" "I'm pulling the express?" gasped Bear. "I didn't know that. I thought this was just some random train." "No, this is the express all right," said Patrick. "Quick, follow this track and get back on the main line as soon as you can." "Thank you for your help," said Bear, and he barely beat Edward back onto the main line. "Good catch," he called. "Keep it going. You're right on time." Bear made his way across the island and quietly coasted into Vickerstown Station right on the dot. The Great Railway Show officials were there, just as Sir Topham Hatt had predicted.
"My word, a diesel engine pulling the famous Sodor Express. This might be a first."
"Look at those matching coaches. This train is the real deal." Bear was feeling pleased with himself. The other engines at the station were surprised to see him, though. "Where's the Flying Scotsman?" asked Stepney. "You didn't steal his train, did you?" "No, I'm his fill-in. He had trouble getting going at Knapford, and the only reason I was there was because I was looking for directions to the diesel works." "Well, you went right by them on your way here," chuckled Flora. "May I take these coaches from you?" "Oh, yes, that would be great." "Well, I would go get refueled, but I actually ran out of oil just as I pulled in. Would anyone be willing to give me a push?" Just then, Edward puffed in. "You did a magnificent job, Bear. Sir Topham Hatt needs to hear about this. Let me take you back to Knapford." Soon, Edward and Bear arrived back at the station. Sir Topham Hatt was most impressed with their performance.
"Well done, you two. Allow me to introduce myself, Bear. I am Sir Topham Hatt, the controller of the Northwestern Railway. What you did today for the island of Sodor will not go unnoticed. Is there anything I can do for you?"
"Thank you kindly, sir," said Bear, "but the only thing I want right now is some diesel oil. I'm awfully thirsty after that long trip." Sir Topham Hatt chuckled and had an oil tanker brought in. The Flying Scotsman and Bear sat side by side in the quiet station.
"Thanks for being willing to step in when called upon. You've got the friendliness and tenacity of a Sodor fellow. The other engines would love to meet you."
"Thank you," replied Bear. "It was fun getting to be famous for a while. I don't do anything special over on the mainland, so pulling a train like that was an incredible experience."
"Stick around," said the Flying Scotsman. "Who knows what else will happen before Christmas arrives? When cold weather strikes, it's up to our polar bear here to save the day."
Bear smiled. A small purr emerged from inside him. It felt really good to be a really useful engine. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 223, Ice Ice Daisy. Christmas was coming up and the engines on Thomas's branch line were excited. "Hello everyone," honked Bertie. "Isn't this just the most wonderful time of the year?" "Indeed," agreed Percy. "My mail coaches are really heavy, but that means there are lots of letters on the way to Santa Claus at the North Pole. Oh boy, that means I better not be late. Talk to everyone soon. And what about you, Toby? How are things on the tram line?" "Henrietta here is filled to the brim with passengers," he replied. "The holidays certainly bring out the best in everyone." "Ugh, what a nuisance," came a loud voice. Just then Daisy rolled in and jolted to a stop. She was looking very cross. "Well, maybe not everyone," murmured Toby.
"That was rough," said Daisy's driver. "You've spilled luggage everywhere. What's going on?"
"Silly new brakes," she complained. "They've got me all in a tizzy. I'm not used to them yet, so don't yell at me." "Leave it to Daisy to complain about new brakes," murmured Bertie. "I'll let you handle this one, Toby." "What's wrong, Daisy?" he asked quietly. "What do you think is wrong? My new brakes are stiff. I stop too quickly and the passengers get mad. What else is new?" Toby smiled and decided he'd seen enough. "I hope things get better for you," and he trundled away. "Pah! Toby doesn't understand my plight. He's an old steam tram that's never had a new part in his life. Now a diesel rail car like myself, I am always up to date with the latest technology. You'll never see me sliding around on the rails. That would be most improper." Later that day, Daisy made her way to the diesel works for more repairs. Den and Dart were not pleased to see her. "What's the matter now?" they asked. "You put my brakes on too tight. Now I come to a stop immediately when they are applied. This is most inconvenient. What were you thinking?" "Yeah, silly us for wanting you to stop where you're supposed to," chuckled Dart. "We'll get a workman over here to fix 'em."
"Is there anything else we can do, Your Majesty?"
"Ugh, don't start with me. My oil lines feel clogged and my new wheels haven't sunk into the rails yet. It's very difficult to be this pleasant and bright when I've been so uncomfortable lately." Den and Dart rolled their eyes.
"Daisy, over the past few months, we've replaced nearly every part on you, and you're still not happy."
What he means is, we think it's time you started trying to make things work instead of complaining about 'em.
Daisy grew cross. "How dare you suggest I haven't been trying to make the best of my poor situation? I will be leaving now." Secretly, the Diesels were happy to see her go. "Nobody understands my aches and pains," she groaned. "And all before the holidays, too. This is most intolerable." That evening, Ryan was prepping the trains for the next day. Toby had an unusual delivery at the quarry before Daisy picked up her passengers. "I'll leave these cars here for Toby," he said, "and by the time Daisy arrives, the platform should be clear. This won't be a problem at all." Unbeknownst to Ryan, the waterworks cars had a small leak in them. Over the course of the cold night, water dripped onto the track and turned the rails into a sheet of ice. When Toby arrived the next morning, he didn't notice it because he backed up to the cars and immediately puffed away. "Right on time," murmured Ryan. "Now let's hope Daisy will be the same." As usual, Daisy was in a bad mood when she woke up. "I don't want to go outside in the cold," she muttered. "My piping will only fare poorly in this kind of weather." "Come on, Daisy," grumbled Boko. "Get on out there like the rest of us." Reluctantly, Daisy left the sheds and made her way to Elsbridge Station. As she rounded the bend, she applied her brakes hard to make sure she would stop. But instead, she slid through the platform and ran straight into a train of waiting cargo cars. "What happened?" she gasped. "Oh, these miserable brakes! I told you I wasn't well. My fitter will soon hear about this." Thomas and Ryan groaned. "It's not anybody's fault," they said. "Look, there's a patch of ice on the track that you slipped on." But Daisy was inconsolable. "What a horrible start to the day. I'll have to get new buffers, and my paint's been scratched, and—" Just then, a new engine puffed up. "I hear there's some ice on the rails," he asked. "Yes, thank you for arriving so quickly, Dustin." "Not to worry. This salt truck here will get that slippery stuff melting right away." And Dustin was right. In just a few minutes, the ice had disappeared and the track was safe. Daisy was most impressed. That was amazing! You got the job done so quickly, too. No worries. As a wintertime member of the Sodor Search and Rescue Team, it's my duty to clear the rails of snow and assist in any way that I can. You have a pleasant day, ma'am. Daisy couldn't believe what had just happened. That engine was so nice, and he helped me out like it was nothing at all. You know, more engines should be like Dustin. In fact, I should try being more like Dustin. Oh, I'm sorry, Thomas and Ryan. I've been rather finicky lately and probably very difficult to deal with. Let me make it up to you. For the rest of the day, Daisy did her work without fuss and was extra nice when she ran into Toby and Percy. You seem to be making spirits bright, he chuckled. Well done, Daisy, added Toby. We could all use a little Christmas cheer right about now. But Daisy wasn't done. She made a special trip over to the diesel works and thanked Den and Dart for their help. Of course, it's our job after all. What he means is, we're always happy to help. Come see us again. That evening, Daisy made her way to the Search and Rescue Center where Dustin was resting. Thank you for your help this morning, she said. I hope I didn't seem rude. Sometimes I become rather self-centered when things aren't going well. But your merry attitude and your eager helpfulness made me see that things aren't bad at all. You're welcome, Daisy. I understand the difficulties of working in cold weather during the busiest time of the year, but it's a lot easier when you have friends to help you out. Daisy smiled. You're right about that. Thanks again, Dustin. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go spend the holidays with mine. Have a nice evening, everyone. And Daisy the diesel car rolled away, a much more appreciative and joyful engine. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 224, The Island of Misfit Engines. One afternoon, Sir Topham had arrived at the sheds with some exciting news. Attention, everyone! I have received word from the mainland that the fastest engine competition was held this morning. Oh, wow, gasped Henry. Where did Gordon finish? Did he win? Gordon didn't win, but he still finished an impressive second behind Caitlin. The engines were very happy. Good for Gordon, said Edward, and congratulations to Caitlin on her victory. I had my doubts when Gordon first entered the competition, added Thomas, but he certainly showed us. Indeed. This calls for a celebration. The Great Railway Show Committee is handing out the awards this afternoon during their big Christmas party. I'm heading over right now, but once you have finished with your trains, you are all more than welcome to join me at the event. But when the engines were ready to go a few hours later, they discovered that the Vickerstown Bridge had frozen in the upright position. This is terrible, said Molly. We were all looking forward to the party, and now there's no way to get there. Just then, Percy puffed in with the mail. Is it true that we're all stuck here on Sodor? That's right, replied Norman, and we have no idea when the bridge is going to thaw. Depending on the weather, we could be stuck here for a few days. Just then, Vinny puffed in. Hey, what's the big idea here? I need to get to the mainland for the party. Move it or lose it, toots. No need to be rude, said Edward. Besides, the Vickerstown Bridge isn't working right now due to the cold temperatures, so you can't go anywhere. Vinny's smirky grin disappeared. What? No, there has to be a way to get there. I have so many awards to accept. I'm the guest of honor, you know. For some reason, I don't believe any of that, quipped Molly. You might as well get comfortable here on Sodor.
Besides, added Edward, I think we're going to hold our own celebration party since we can't attend the one on the mainland. You're more than welcome to join us, Vinny. Pah! I would never be caught socializing with you Injuns. You're all just a bunch of misfits. The cool Injuns are over on the mainland at the real party, and I'll get there one way or another. The Injuns felt hurt by Vinny's comments. Such a bossy boiler, grunted Norman. Why does he have to ruin our evening?
There's no reason why he does, suggested Percy. Let's prove Vinny wrong and have a great time at our own party.
That's the spirit, Percy. Spread the word, everyone. Let's all meet at the sheds right now and have a celebration bash that no one will ever forget. Soon, Tidmouth Sheds was packed to the brim with engines from all over the island. Every berth was filled, and the party even overflowed next door to Tidmouth Station. It was a smashing success. Attention, everyone, shouted Edward. Thank you all so much for attending today's celebration. Just because we can't get to the mainland doesn't mean the party can't go on as planned. The steam engines whistled and the diesels honked their horns. It was a joyous occasion. If it's all right, I'd like to call attention to a few engines. First of all, congratulations to everyone that competed in the Great Railway Show. Regardless of whether you won or not, your entry into the show was greatly appreciated. I know Caitlin and Gordon couldn't be here right now due to the weather, but the next time that you see them, be sure to congratulate them on their excellent achievements.
And Hugo too, reminded
Frida. That's right. And speaking of which, I would also like to thank the international engines for coming from around the world to compete in the Great Railway Show. We have all immensely enjoyed your company these past few months and wish you safe travels when it's time to leave. Ashima smiled. And from all of us visitors, thank you for hosting us, Sodor. We will never forget our time here. Just then the engine spotted something in the sky. Who's that? Gasped James. It's a bird, shouted Henry. No, it's a plane, said Toby. Actually, it's Harold the helicopter, laughed Billy. Hello, everyone. I have a special guest aboard. Just then Sir Topham Hatt stepped out and the engines cheered. Nice to see you, sir, said Edward. What brings you back to Sodor so quickly? Once I heard that the bridge was stuck, I knew I couldn't leave you all trapped here. But I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that Vinny tried to jump the Vickerstown Bridge to get to the party and ended up falling off the track.
That's not bad news, chuckled Percy. That's a blessing in disguise.
I wonder where he got a crazy idea like that, murmured Thomas. Every wise engine knows that you can't jump a bridge and land safely on the other side. But the good news is that Vinny's immense weight broke the ice and the bridge is now working again.
Well, that's fantastic, said Henry. Maybe we should all go over to the mainland and join the party.
Actually, said Sir Topham Hatt, the word had spread about your magnificent party here on Sodor, and all of the engines from the mainland are on their way here right now.
That's great, said Edward, but I have a feeling we won't all fit around the sheds. It's pretty packed as it is.
I agree, but I have an interesting idea. What if we all spread out around the island and have separate parties in different areas?
Yes, that sounds amazing, said James. Like a party at Knapford, a party at the docks, one at Vickerstown.
Precisely. Now the other engines will be here soon, so let's spread out and everyone have the best celebration party that the island of Sodor has ever seen. The engines cheered and quickly went about their ways.
In no time at all, there were massive gatherings at Knapford Station, Brendam Docks, and other places around the island. Even the narrow gauge engines got in on the festivities.
"What a day," chuckled Sir Topham Hatt. "Leave it to my wonderful engines to plan something so unexpected and innocent, only to have it blossom into a spectacular event like this one. Congratulations on a great railway show, you two. Now it's time to ring in Christmas and the New Year. But first, where's Caroline?"
Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 225, A Christmas Caroline. It was Christmas Day on the island of Sodor, and Caroline the car was stranded near the Coldefell Railway. She had broken down weeks ago, but nobody had noticed her absence. Caroline had long given up hope of being rescued, and was becoming rather glum. "What we need is a good snowfall," she muttered to herself. "That way there will be an avalanche and I'll get buried in a hurry. Normally an old car like myself shouldn't be left out in inclement weather, but at this point I'd welcome anything to break the boredom." "It's not that boring," said an engine. "Ah, who are you?" gasped Caroline. "And what are you doing on the ground next to me?" "I'm Proteus, the magical narrow gauge engine. I was saying it's not boring. Look at the spectacular mountain views up here." "Well, yes, I suppose that is a beautiful view, but I've been stuck up here for weeks and it all looks the same now. But what are you doing here? You're a tank engine and you're not on the rails. Did you crash next to me?" "No, Caroline, I appeared next to you. I'm a special engine. Have you never heard the story of my magic lamp?" "Of course not," she grumbled. "I'm an old car, not a child looking to be entertained by a fairy tale. Now why don't you leave me alone so that I can rot in peace?" Proteus chuckled. "You're quite the humbug, my dear. Come on, I have a few things I want to show you." Caroline rolled her eyes. "Even if I wanted to go with you, I can't because I'm stuck here. If you're so magical, then why don't you call for help and get me out of these cold mountains?" "In a minute, dear," said Proteus. "I'm about to show you what you mean to the island of Sodor." Suddenly, in a blinding flash, the two were quickly transported across the island. "What was that?" gasped Caroline. We've traveled at a high rate of speed and arrived at a different location. What is this sorcery?" "Relax," laughed Proteus. "If you love that, then you'll be amazed at airplane travel. But never mind. Look, we're in front of Bulgy's bridge. Toll booth." "Oh, thank goodness! I can call for help now. And look, there's Sir Topham Hatt. Hello, sir, I'm back. Remember me?" "He can't hear you, sweetheart," mumbled Proteus. "Now sit back and watch." "What are you doing here, sir?" asked Bulgy. "I need your help," he replied. "Caroline has gone missing and we must find her before the elements take their toll. You know all of the back roads on Sodor and can look where the other engines and road vehicles wouldn't dream of looking. In the spirit of Christmas miracles, I will let you out of this toll booth if you help us in the search." Bulgy looked from side to side. "Normally, I couldn't be bothered to search for someone in general, and of all days on Christmas. But Caroline deserves to be found. She always gives me the right of way when we share the road. You have my word, sir. I'll do everything I can to help out." "Well, isn't that nice?" said Caroline. "You know, I've never interacted with Bulgy much, but the fact that he would remember me for that..." Suddenly, the scene at the bridge vanished, and the next thing Caroline knew, she and Proteus were in front of the diesel works. "What are we doing here?" she asked. "I don't think I've ever been here before." Just then, Paxton rolled up. "I just talked to Boko at Vickerstown, and he said that Caroline is still missing.
If you guys can lend a wheel, the more engines that are looking for her, the better." "Aw, Paxton's a great engine," she murmured, "but I'm sure Diesel and everyone else could care less about me." Proteus smiled. "Wait and see," he chuckled.
"Paxton is right," said Diesel. "Come on, Harry and Bert. Do your one good Christmas deed and go assist in the search. I'll join up when I've been refueled."
"That's the spirit," shouted Paxton. "Follow me, everyone."
Harry and Bert grumbled to themselves, but they still followed Paxton out of the diesel works. Caroline was most surprised.
"Well, isn't that swell? I can't believe it. Although Bert looks a lot different than the last time I remember."
"That's the steam engine, honey, not the diesel," said Proteus.
"Oh, right. How do you know everything, by the way? And how are we getting around like this?"
The lamp, remember? Now hold on to your spare tire. I want to show you something else." Before Caroline could say anything, she and Proteus were at the Search and Rescue Center.
"It looks rather empty here," she said. "Where is everyone?"
"They're out looking for you, silly. Look, here comes Flynn." And Flynn looked exhausted. "All right, Gordon, it's your turn. Thanks for covering for me while I was out searching for Caroline." "No problem, Flynn. This is a team effort. The entire island is involved in the search. I'll be back in a few hours. Until then, get some rest and I'll wake you when I return." Just then, Caitlin puffed up.
"Look, it's the fastest engine in the world," chuckled Dustin.
"Lovely coaches you have there, Caitlin."
"Thank you, boys. Normally, I'd stay and chat, but I'm pulling a trainload of workmen to help look for Caroline. We're going up near Ulfstead Castle in Coldie Fell, so wish us luck."
"See you soon, Flynn," said Gordon. "I never thought I'd be a search and rescue engine, but when Caroline's the prize, anything's possible, I suppose."
Caroline was speechless. "Now do you see what you mean to this island?" This is incredible," she murmured. "Gordon and Caitlin, they were just at the Great Railway Show winning awards, and now they're looking for me? The entire island of Sodor looking for me? But I'm just an old broken down car with a bad attitude. I don't deserve this attention." "See how many engines and road vehicles you've impacted? There's a reason why everyone's looking. Everyone loves you, Caroline. I hope you can see that now." Caroline smiled. "I think I do," she said quietly. "But are those workmen really coming to look for me?" "They are," said Proteus. "Uh-oh, that means we need to get back to Coldie Fell." And in the blink of an eye, the two were back in the mountains where Caroline had been stranded. "That was a very interesting experience," she said. "But was all of that real? Or am I just imagining everything right now?" "Well, you have been stuck in the wilderness for a few weeks, so you're probably hallucinating. But that doesn't mean what you've seen here isn't actually happening." "Okay," laughed Caroline. "That makes me feel better, because for a second, I thought this was all just a... Proteus? Proteus! Where are you? Proteus! Oh, great. Now I'm all alone again. That silly engine, making me think I was about to be rescued."
"Caroline!" shouted Bulgy. "There you are! I thought I heard you shouting. It's nice to see that you're all right. Let me go get some help and we'll get you out of here."
Caroline was relieved. That evening she was towed to Knapford Station where Sir Topham Hatt and the engines were waiting for her.
"My dear Caroline," he said thoughtfully, "I realized at Vickerstown Station a few days ago that I hadn't seen you in a while, and it occurred to me that you might have gone missing. We'll get you fixed up in no time, and you'll be back on the roads here soon."
"Merry Christmas, Caroline," said Thomas. "We've all missed you tremendously." "And I've missed you all too," she murmured. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks for remembering me.